Hi, friend, and welcome back to Marvelous Friends, your home for all things Marvel Cinematic Universe and beyond. I'm Rhett, and today we're continuing on with Jessica Jones Season 3 for Episode 4. Roll that credit. For this episode, we're turning our focus onto Eric with what starts off as a potentially kind of bad origin story for him, where we see a couple who could presumably be his parents and a younger version of Eric playing with a toy. Though we find out that this is not a younger version of Eric, as our current Eric rises up out of the pool. Turns out the woman in the scene is actually a bookkeeper named Sal Blakowski, who Eric is in debt to, and her favorite way of torturing people into doing what she wants is to tie weights around their feet and toss them into the deep end of the family pool. Jessica immediately assumes that this is who it has to be that was behind the stabbing. Eric quickly writing this off, though, saying that he still has 12 hours to pay off Saul and that stabbing is not her style. Eric comes through with the shocker on this one, saying that he himself is super powered. Now, considering we have not yet come across the idea of mutation and mutants in the MCU, I will go ahead and assume that he is inhuman. In the comic books, he is known as Mindwave and actually uses a version of ESP that is through a helmet that he wears. This ESP allows him to blind people who are non-telepathic themselves, and then also gives him an enhanced ability when he is wearing the helmet to contact and communicate telepathically with others wearing similar helmets. I do suspect that we will see some iteration of that helmet referenced in this series, but it does not look like that is the main source of his powers. In this adaptation, the Mindwave abilities relate to him being able to sense the evil within other peoples, with him having a harsher reaction to those who have a darker, deeper evil, especially for those who seem to not be remorseful for what they have done. It turns out that Eric is in fact the true embodiment of the theme of the season, literally being able to walk down the street and pinpoint those who are evil and know those who are good, though choosing to remain indifferently neutral about the whole thing, whereas he could have potentially sought out and found out what these people have done and done something about it, has chosen instead to do nothing. Well, not exactly nothing, using this ability to blackmail those who he finds out have been doing wrong and are morally indifferent about it, and make a profit to pay off his gambling debts. He reveals to Jessica that he believes it is one of his most recent 3 marks that are currently active to have been the person behind the stabbing. We find out that the first one is actually involved in child pornography, the second is an executive accountant who has been skimming millions of money off of her employees' pension plans, and the third is our guy, but we will come back to him in a moment. While this has all been going on, Malcolm has come through for Jerry once again, finding the true scathing details of Peter's past that will ultimately give Jerry what she wants, though he is reluctant to give it to her as he has found out that this is not a business deal but a personal matter and a vendetta of Jerry, ultimately not questioning it and instead asking for a better contract, most likely so he could be more open with his girlfriend, Kaya, who has kind of started to notice that something is wrong. I really do think everything that he is doing for Jerry and his ambition at work is going to be the major thing that drives something between Kaya and Malcolm. Though he does slip out the word marriage here, I don't think they're going to make it there, as she is very loyal to Jerry and we see him falling less and less loyal to her every episode. Though she doesn't seem as cutthroat as Jerry, she does aspire to be here one day. Ultimately, though, Jerry agrees to the contract, and so Malcolm hands over the information. Turns out Peter has been skimming a little bit off the top of that foundation set up in his and Kit's daughter's name, using the money to pay off bills and give gifts to all of his girlfriends. To Malcolm's relief, though, Jerry says that she has decided to not release the information, adding the caveat, though, not yet. After a night out at the opera with Kith, though, she realizes that ultimately she's never going to have the full relationship that she wants with Kith as long as she is married to Peter, sending a text to Malcolm to release the information. Trish wants to go after Blakowski and follow Eric. Jessica does not, as she is still concerned with figuring out who is responsible for the stab wound. Having enough of Trish being in her business tells her to back off and that there's plenty of bad guys out in the world, so there's no need for them to team up. So, luckily for Eric, Trish does follow him to the Blakowskis, because it turns out he didn't quite make the time cutoff to repay his debts. Blakowski resorting to her usual forms of torture, tying weights to his legs and throwing him in the pool. While he is struggling to untie his weights, Trish takes down all of Blakowski's grunts and ultimately helping him escape. Eric quickly, though, runs off, leaving Trish behind. Blakowski takes one more run at Trish with a crowbar, but Trish is easily able to dodge it, sending Sal flying. However, Sal lands on the crowbar and impales herself. Trish, freaking out, calls 911 and runs off. This again showing Trish that there are real consequences to being a hero. And in this case, yes, she saved Eric, but ultimately didn't get the bad guy because Sal is going to get away, having nothing happen to her in the end, as she will ultimately be the victim in the situation. This potentially will lead to more fallout for Eric, who is probably going to be held responsible for bringing Muscle along with the whole situation, with Blakowski coming back to get even with Eric. Jessica is now investigating the third suspect in Eric's brainwave-based blackmail, and it turns out it is Gregory Salinger, our showrunner villain for the season. And since he isn't home, she promptly breaks into his apartment to have a look around. While in there, she finds a buttload of degrees and books showing just how smart the man is, a suspicious-looking set of tools in a closet, and a missing butcher knife from a kitchen knife set. While she's checking out this last fact, though, Gregory returns to his apartment, apparently having been just in Jessica's, where he retrieved and cleaned the knife to return to his set. Now, he, of course, choreographs this whole interaction to make it seem like he is just a victim in the breaking and entering of Jessica Jones. Luckily for her, though, she is recording this entire conversation, which I'm sure will come in very handy in future episodes. Though she quickly leaves as he calls 911 to again pose as the victim, requesting police backup as Jessica Jones is threatening him in his apartment. Returning back to her apartment, Jessica finds Eric waiting for her at the door. Immediately, he asks if she was the one that sent the masked hero to help him out at Blakowski's. Jessica immediately knows that this is Trish and is irritated. Entering the apartment, the two of them find the ransom money that Eric had requested, being covered in blood, with another bill tacked to the photo on the wall of Salinger on the suspect list. On one side of this bill is written fraud, and on the other in hero, this also written in blood. All this dictating just how crazy this man really is, and what a potential danger he shows to Jessica, as he knows that she is not impenetrable. Jessica tells Eric to lie low, which he is happy to do and is more than willing to avoid all the heroics. Instead, Jessica calls Trish, asking for her help to be her secret weapon, since no one knows who she is. Again, I would like to point back to the Netflix title card and show that Trish may not be as much of a secret weapon for Jessica as she thinks she will. On that title card, there are 3 photos with what I now assume is Salinger in the background. One of them, of course, Jessica. The one I am 100% sure now is Eric. And the third is Trish, which means that Trish is in his sightlines as well. Now, this could be not right now, and more so as she develops as being a bigger role in the whole conflict. He learns who she is and all of that. I also will say that I, again, think that Malcolm and Jerry's personal lives are going to fall apart as they become more and more involved in this plot to break up Peter and Kith, with this really causing their personal downfalls in the series. I think that we're also going to see some more fallout for Trish personally with this whole incident with Blakowski, with her showing back up both in the plot to get revenge for what happened to her, as well as dealing with the psychological issue of the consequences of being a hero. And again, Blakowski showing up to get revenge on Eric, for who she thinks will probably be the one that had brought along the Muscle. Eric, I do think, is far from gone in the action of the series, even though that he has bowed out and is laying low. I do also think that eventually Salinger will get him at some point in the series, causing Jess to go after Salinger with all that much more anger and force, as she does when she tends to lose someone in this series. What do you think, although? Let me know down in those comments all of your favorite parts, least favorite parts, and your thoughts on the episode. Make sure to subscribe and set those alerts as we continue to chug on through this season. I'm getting more and more excited, for sure. Until then, though, I love you all 3,000, and I hope you have a marvelous rest of your day. Bye, friend!